Hello, fellow Movie Crusaders, and welcome to a special episode of the Weekend Crusaders. My name's Sean Wasserkrug. With me, as always, is Brian Michaels. We are coming to you today because this is our lost episode. A few weeks back, we were going to do a special or another episode of Weekend Crusaders, but Brian Michaels went on vacation and left me abandoned with his shitty internet.
I was stranded in the middle of nowhere with internet so bad I couldn't even have a conversation.
Yeah, he basically was on like dial-up, and so we couldn't shoot the episode. So this is the episode that we're shooting. Technically, this takes place for I think it's the last week of June.
I believe so.
But yeah, we were different people back then, and things have changed in the last month, and we're gonna give you that episode right now. So let's go ahead and flash back. Hello, fellow Movie Crusaders, and welcome to another episode of the Weekend Crusaders. My name's Sean Wasserkrug, and with me, as always, is Brian Michaels. We're going to be talking about 5 movies that came out during the week of June 25th to June 27th, and we have a wide assortment of films. We have 2 movies that are very, very favorable for me. They're favorites of mine. We have one that's one of Brian's favorites films, a rare 5-star review film for Brian. And then we've got a stinker that Brian's like, I've never seen this. Let's watch the trailer. And we both were like, oh no, this is going to be bad. So we're going to start with that one because we just want to get this one out of the way. So what was it? Was it like February or something? We couldn't find like a good stinker for this week. And I think we had looked through the list. I was like, there's nothing really sticking out. And you go, wait, what about this? And I'm like, I don't know what that is. You're like, let me pull up the preview on YouTube. We watched it. I'm like, oh, this one doesn't count. And you're like, yes, it does. It's like, we're watching it. I was like, fuck me. Okay, here we go. And so this is all Brian's fault, by the way. Our stinker this week is the 1982 classic Megaforce. Megaforce came out June 25th, 1982, had a budget of $20 million. If you've seen that movie, you don't know where that money went. Had a weekend opening of $2.35 million. It was number 9 its opening weekend behind E.T. the Extraterrestrial in its 3rd week, Blade Runner in its 1st week, Firefox in its 2nd week, Rocky 3 in its 5th week, Star Trek II The Wrath of Khan in its 4th week, Annie in its 6th week, Poltergeist in its 4th week, and The Thing in its 1st week. And I totally deleted what it made total money because I'm awesome like that. So I will pull that up real quick. But Brian, why don't you tee up?
So there was a time in the early 80s where they were pumping out these really cheesy kind of action sci-fi movies. They looked low budget, but some of them had decent stars in that. Especially a lot of them came out in like 3D and stuff. It's during that whole kind of the 80s version of 3D craze. One of them I remember seeing like commercials for it, and I remember I've seen the title and stuff. When looking through the list, I noticed Megaforce, and I'm like, you know what? This is one of those really bad cheesy 80s movies. So if we're looking for a stinker, that's the one to go for. I haven't seen it, but I'm almost sure it's got to qualify.
It made total box office $5.67 million.
That's about 5.6 million too much.
Yeah.
So I saw this on the list. I'm like, I think that'd probably be a good candidate. We look it up, we watch the trailer, and it's exactly what I thought it was. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is a total stinker. To which Sean was like, we're not going to watch this. I'm like, you want a stinker? This is the definition of it. You cannot look at this and tell me this isn't a horrible movie.
Well, it's one of those things where it's like, it's a horrible movie, but it's also one of those like a Sharknado kind of thing where it's like, it's intended to be a bad movie, but then you watch it, you're like,
this was not intended to be bad.
I don't think that was their intent.
This was not intended to be bad. It was bad. It was not intentional though. The problem starts with, first of all, you look at the poster, which right here, or you watch the trailer. It totally looks like it's trying to be like a sci-fi movie, like it's somewhere, like a Star Wars, or maybe kind of mixed with Mad Max.
That was the intent of the trailer. Yeah, we thought it was going to be like a sci-fi futuristic war film.
Yeah, so we started watching the movie, and we're like, I'm not even sure this is the future. And like, maybe it jumps to the future later on. We're watching, no. So we kept finally looking up, and I'm like, oh no, this takes place basically present day. I mean, there's some geopolitical stuff which might be like the near future, but technology and everything.
There's even a joke at the end that it's the 80s.
Yeah.
So it is present day, but it's just like there's two made up countries that I guess are like, I guess the equivalent of like, I guess the two main countries of the world now, because that's how it's being focused. And then you've got this secret army that's kind of there in between, that's like kind of for hire. But I mean, clearly, like America's around and all the other countries because they all have their
Megaforce is this international coalition of like not super soldiers, not superpower, but like super soldiers, like elite soldiers. And so each of them has like the one from their country. One of them has the American flag. One has the Italian flag. Actually, this guy from America has the Confederate flag. So I don't know if that's become a different country or if he's just.
He actually, I think, puts the Confederate flag on like one of his like motorcycles or tanks near the end of the film too.
So I don't know what's going on there, but so they're basically called up to help protect those things, and there's some kind of conflict going on with these two made up countries. And honestly, the movie is two things. It's one, mostly boring, at least plot wise. I had fun making fun of this movie. I had fun, but two, it's completely incoherent. I mean, there was multiple times when we're like, what is going on here? Who is that? What are they doing? At one point, we both stopped watching. Well, we let the movie play.
Yeah, I think it was around like the 45 minute mark. I think it was around the 45 minute mark. You and I both, like, I was like, Brian, you have any idea what the fuck's going on? You go, no, I don't either. I'm pulling up the wiki plot so we can try to read this and understand what we both literally are on our phones reading the wiki plot as the movie's playing because we were trying to catch up.
And I intentionally I wasn't going to read ahead. I didn't want to know what's going to happen. I was just reading up to the point we were at just to figure out what had happened. And after reading it, still no clue. I still didn't understand what was going on.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like we were expecting just like kind of like a batshit crazy, like bad action sci-fi film. So we had the mindset of like, okay, they're going to do some crazy stuff. And in the beginning, we kind of get an introduction to this team, which is, let's watch three guys ride a motorcycle while one does an ollie and shoots arrows at balloons. Like, pew, pew, pew. Oh, wow, these guys are badasses. No, they're not. But then we get like 45 minutes of just talking. And it's not even like good dialogue. It's just dry and, like Brian said, incoherent to the point where it's like, I don't understand what's going on.
And like for instance, there's the one girl who
from Star Trek.
But she was in Star Trek: The Motion Picture. She was the bald girl.
Versus Kambata, yeah.
So she shows up basically, and somehow she's like, there's kind of conflicting with the main character of Barry Bostwick's character of Ace. There's such an 80s name, Ace. But then of course they at some point just suddenly fall in love for no reason. The parachuting. The parachuting. Oh my goodness!
No, hold on! Don't.
We'll get to that, but just plot wise,
don't bury the lead. Come on, but they, I guess, flirt here and there. It's not good flirting. It's more or less like she doesn't think they're anything special, and he's just kind of being like the Han Solo kind of thing. But yes, they eventually do I don't even know why they're parachuting. Are they just parachuting just to
training, I think.
Yeah, the train because she's training to be a part of this mission, and it is parachute scene, and it's some of the worst like visuals. Like there's only one point where this is the equivalent of fucking while skydiving between these two. Like at one point they're like doing like synchronized like dancing, and there's one point where like he's hanging over her almost like in a 69 position, and she's doing this and just
all while this bad like 70s early 80s like slow romantic love song
they're so close, guys. This isn't like an actual sex scene, but it looks awkward and just bad. You can tell that like they're not obviously skydiving. They're like
it's a weird falling. Like actual skydiving you can tell isn't them. And then it'll switch to the scene, look straight out of Saturday Night Live with somebody's going, ooh, in front of a blue screen. Ooh.
Yeah, like clearly she's on a big box on her back and like pretend like you're falling and she's like, ugh. And it's horrible. But out of that 3 minutes in the air, true love blossoms.
Suddenly they're in love. And then basically somebody comes up and goes, no women. And then that's the end of her role for the movie. Like,
yeah, basically it's like, I can't let you go out there because these men have been training all their lives and you just showed up and it would look bad. And then she just leaves until like the last 5 minutes of the film. And it's
like, what was the point of the whole thing?
Frankly, I think she was just distracted by his bulge.
Oh yes, the bulge.
Because Brian was focused on this way too much in the
not because I
film.
wanted to focus on it. It's one of those things like you can't not see because he's wearing like this onesie brown thing.
And it's not even brown. It's almost kind of flesh tones. There's parts where it's like at a distance, he looks like he's naked. Or he's naked wearing kind of like the strap stuff. But then you get close enough, you're like, and Brian goes, he's going to have a bulge, isn't he? And then he turns and he's like, yep, there's the bulge. But it's just, we're like an hour into the film, and I'm like, where's the action? Like, nothing's happened in this film. Finally, we get on this mission, and they're showing up, and they're just shooting shit. And I notice, I'm like, what's this clock down here?
Yeah, a timer, a countdown. It's a countdown.
5-minute timer.
And we're like, what is it counting down to? Did I miss something? Like, I don't know.
I was like, I don't recall them saying they were going to be in and out in 5 minutes. But sure enough, they go in and out in 5 minutes. They're just blindly shooting and destroying things. It's not like they're shooting at people. They're just, like, honestly, it felt like the equivalent of, like, when a bunch of skater thugs run into a gas station and just mess the place up and then dash before they can get caught. That's what it felt like, except that they were blowing shit up. Because they just come in, revving everything up, attacking tanks, attacking buildings, and within 5 minutes, they all just dash out of there. Like, we got you! O'Doyle rules! Kind of thing. And that's the main action of the film up until the last, 10 minutes. And we're back at it where we're talking again. And then, the main villain, I don't know if he was the villain.
There's a weird relationship. Basically, Ace has this guy. There's this guy who we see as, like, the head of the bad guy army, I guess you want to call it.
He's not really a bad guy. I think he's just another hired gun kind of guy.
But they make him out to be, like, the bad guy.
Henry Silva plays
Pereira. He shows up at the military base where Ace is, and they're, like, talking like old friends. And, again, like, did I miss something? And then, like, the girl who shows up, the people who know who he is, and they're like, hey, no, he's the bad guy. He's like, oh, it's okay. He's a friend of mine. And I have no clue what's going on in this movie.
Well, that's the whole thing, too. Is the first time we get to that base where they inevitably attack, he's playing chess with another one of his guys. Megaforce shows up, blows up all their shit. He then, shows up the next day, instead of being like, dude, you blow up all my crap. And he's like, Ace! How's it going, buddy? Like, literally, I only knew what was going on because of the wiki, that they were old, army buddies. And, he had, Ace's lighter with his name on it. And there's all this. And then, eventually, they do what they do. And, the girl and her boss or father or whatever, oh, well, thanks for doing what you did, but we're not going to need you any further. We're not going to actually invade. And they leave. So then the bad guy / friend's well, we're gonna attack you now. You can't escape because, you attacked us. And so they basically have to charge them because, they're bottlenecked into a canyon and it's the only way they can get out. So they all charge, and all of them, for the most part, get through it with no problems. I don't think anyone dies in this fucking film. I don't think there's a single fatality in this movie. But then we get to the moment that I think Brian was waiting for. The whole thing.
Well, can I preface that with something else first?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Now, so you talk about the $20 million budget. I know where the budget went. First of all, about $1 million, I'm going to say, went to hairspray for Barry Bostwick.
I was literally going to say Barry Bostwick's hair. It went to Barry Bostwick's hair.
But the rest of it, they clearly spent on renting or building or buying whatever their vehicles. Yeah. Oh my God, they love their vehicles. The movie starts off watching this repetitive 5-minute thing of them shooting off tanks.
Oh yes, I totally forgot about that. Because it's just random shooting. I'm like, Brian, what are we watching? What is this? Is this a war?
Random tank shoot off, and then watching tanks and jeeps and stuff drive across and then the motorcycles show up. There's a 10-minute montage. The motorcycles driving on, blowing shit up, and doing this. One guy just loves his wheelies, by the way, just wheeling the whole time.
It's Ace.
Anytime a plane landed or took off, it did a 5-minute sequence of watching the plane take off in full. At one point, there's 3 planes that we watch a plane take off, and they go to a second plane. We watch that one in full take off. Goes to the third plane. We watch that take off.
It's B-roll, but instead of it being actual B, they air the whole B-roll, which it's And I'm like, we don't need to watch this whole sequence. And Brian's like, if they took this out, the movie's 20 minutes long. And I'm like, okay, you got a point. But there's literally a moment where they're just watching everyone get in this plane and fly off. And it's like watching the whole airplane get lined up. There's no dialogue. It's just music.
You just watch it in full. Like And then the same thing with that. When somebody shows up in a helicopter, you see in the distance and you watch the entire time while it flies in.
Like at one point, I was like,
slowly lands.
I was like, are they going to shoot the plane? Like, is that what we're waiting for? No. You just watch the plane take off, and then here comes another plane. You're like, oh my god! It's to the point where like Brian's like, can we fast forward? And I was like, I don't think we're gonna miss anything. And like he fast forwarded like 3 minutes, and we were still watching the same shit. And I was like, there's nothing going on right now. It's like I totally forgot about that. Yeah,
they loved it. That's where all the money went to these vehicles and apparently renting out tanks and helicopters and planes, whatever. So we get to the end. There's a big battle at the end with tanks again, just shooting off whatever for 10 minutes straight, and nobody knows what's going on. And then the motorcycles, of course, are doing their thing because they love their motorcycles. And then so now throughout the whole movie, like the Q character, I guess, the scientist guy. He keeps talking to Ace about, I put something special on your bike. It's 1, then 2, and then it's like, okay.
Yeah, they drop it like 3 times in the movie. You're like, well, that's eventually going to come back somewhere.
So against the end, they decide they have to take off without Ace because he didn't make it back in time, but they have to go. So the plane, this big cargo plane, with the big open hatch, starts taking off. I'm like, he's going to come and just jump into that. And then sure enough, he comes on his motorcycle. And then I'm like, he's coming. Sure enough, 1, he hits the 1 button, then 2. And he does this wheelie. It's like a super wheelie because these wings come out and the jets come on, and it's like a flying motorcycle. Okay, so this motorcycle is just flying like a jet ski in the air. It's just flying towards the plane. But it's this whole like really slow paced montage with him just like smiling, grinning, like
he's orgasmic through this whole thing.
He's smiling like this. And at one point he actually does like a full barrel roll, like smile the whole time. It's like, and you're like, oh my god! I
everyone's just watching him like he's
put it in here.
Everyone's just watching it like he's a majestic eagle. Like none of the bad guys are shooting at him. They're all just like, wow. And he's just like,
all the other soldiers, all the other Megaforce are on the plane. Come on, you can do it, Ace. Come on, you can do it. And then he's doing his weird
goes
oh
in.
my gosh.
And then the movie ends. And then the movie just straight up ends. But not before the call sign.
Got to end with that.
The thumb kiss.
Just signed to his girlfriend that disappeared for most of the movie after you wouldn't let her on the mission.
Yeah. Apparently the thumb kiss that takes place from Face Off. It's thumb kiss. It's
I mean, was this? So this movie, okay, let me put it this way. This movie, I can't say was fun to watch beginning to end because it got super boring and repetitive and confusing. But there was enough in it to make fun of that I'm actually glad we watched it as a stinker because it deserves to be a stinker.
It deserves to be a stinker, but it's not a stinker that you should go and watch because
I do want to watch that one scene again.
There's 10, maybe 15 minutes worth of actual stuff to watch in this movie, and it's an hour, 40-minute movie. I mean, watch it for Barry Bostwick's like blue headband and mane, and his kind of thing. But and then just watch him ride the motorcycle in the air, and like that's it. Like you can back out of it. But yeah, it's not on anything because I can't think of any form.
It's on Amazon. You can rent it on Amazon or buy it for that matter.
You can rent everything on Amazon. But I mean, it's like no one's streaming this thing for free because why?
No.
Why? Yeah, we spent way too much time talking about this damn movie. Literally, we're getting ready to do the movie. I'm like, I don't think we have a whole lot to say about Megaforce.
I remember plenty that we could talk about.
Well, yeah, it was one of those things like we were remembering shit as we went through it. We're gonna move on now to my pick. This is a comedy. It was between one or the other for me. I had 2 comedies that I loved. One of them, Brian just does not like. So I was like, fine, I'll be nice. I won't make Brian watch it. Now,
you just didn't want me to bash it. That's what it was.
Now, next year, I'm probably going to pick it because I want to. It was Spaceballs. Brian doesn't like Spaceballs. But I picked my other comedy that I loved watching when I was younger, even though I was probably way too young to watch it, but I don't care because my parents loved me, was another, to me, a great 80s comedy, and that was Bill Murray's Stripes, or Ivan Reitman or Harold Ramis or John Candy. It's got a great cast. But Stripes came out June 26, 1981, had a budget of $10 million, had a weekend opening of $6 million. It was number 4 its opening weekend behind Superman 2 in its second week, Cannonball Run in its second week, and For Your Eyes Only in its first week, and had a finished box office of $85.29 million. Now, I mean, if those names that I just mentioned don't sell this to you, I don't know what this is. But I think most people, especially our age, probably remember In the Army Now with Pauly Shore and Andy Dick, where it's like two doofus guys join the army, and it's, chaos ensues because, they definitely should not be in the army. I think they got that idea from Stripes. Because that's totally Stripes. Because Stripes, you have Bill Murray, who's literally, was he a taxi driver? I think he's a taxi driver. He's just in a rut. He loses his girlfriend. He loses his apartment. He loses his job. Harold Ramis is his buddy. This is pre-Ghostbusters. And he decides, I'm going to join the army. I'll get in great shape and all this kind of stuff. You're coming with me, which I don't think there was ever a reason for Harold Ramis to join him. Like, Harold Ramis' life is not bad. Like, he's actually got a decent life. But because it's his buddy, he drops his life and goes and joins the army. And, of course, like I said, John Candy's there. And, oh, God, there's more people. I'm blanking on all the other names. John Larroquette is there. Sean Young. All these
Judge
other
Reinhold.
people. Yeah, thank you, Judge Reinhold. I couldn't remember if it was Judge Reinhold or not. And it's antics of them at basic training. Obviously, Bill Murray's playing Bill Murray. So Bill Murray at, training he's obviously going to be doing a lot of push-ups, But I mean, it's got the charm of all these actors that we love. Harold Ramis is being Harold Ramis. Bill Murray's being Bill Murray. John Candy's being John Candy. And Judge Reinhold is basically Judge Reinhold. So if you like all these comedic actors, you're just watching them all together go through basic training, and then obviously other stuff happens in the film to further the plot. But it's one of those films, like, as a kid, like, I think I watched this after Ghostbusters. So for me, it was another movie attached to Ghostbusters with, Murray and Ramis. And it's just, I think it's a fun movie. It's if you're a fan of Bill Murray, it's a must watch because it's Bill Murray right in the precipice of, like, this is him becoming a star. And Ramis, obviously, like, this eventually leads to them doing Ghostbusters together. And John Candy, this is right on the precipice of him becoming a star. I think this was literally on the brink before they were all real big. This was kind of one of those movies, like, we talk about, like, It Can't Hardly Wait or something, where it's like, there's all these great comedic actors. They're not huge yet, but they're just on the cusp. And this is that movie with that. Would you agree, disagree?
Yeah, because, I mean, at this point, they had done, like Harold Ramis had directed and written Caddyshack, which, of course, Bill Murray was in. And that was Bill Murray's only, like, his second or third movie at that point. He did, like, that.
He had done Meatballs.
Yeah.
And that was like it.
So I think this is the first one that had. This is the first one he's. Well, I guess Meatballs is kind of star, but the first kind of real big popular movie that he was started. But yeah, it's kind of right at the beginning of everybody's career at this point. So. Yeah, did you want me to go on with my thoughts on it?
I was like, please tell me you got more.
You asked me a question. I wasn't sure if you were done with your general thought.
No, go ahead.
Now, Stripes is a movie I hadn't watched in quite a long time. It's one of those ones that I remember watching and enjoying, but it was never like a favorite of mine or anything. So I was happy to go back and rewatch it. Stripes, to me, first of all, it's enjoyable mostly because of the individual personalities. Bill Murray, like he says, is being Bill Murray, and this is back when Bill Murray, actually was funny and cared and wasn't doing his shitty, more dramatic roles things. Anyway, oh, wow. He's just one of those guys who he made great movies and then he kind of stopped for the last 10, 20 years. But anyway, but Bill Murray in his prime, like you said, Harold Ramis is great, John Candy, all of them. My thing about this movie is it feels to me, I was watching this movie and it got to, the whole opening part and then while they're training and then the graduation ceremony or whatever you want to call it. And I'm like, wow, this movie flew by. Is this already ending? And then I realized, oh no, I forgot there's a whole thing afterwards when they end up in this mission over in Europe or wherever it is. And honestly, I feel like this is kind of, to me, the comedy version of Full Metal Jacket, in that the basic training stuff I thought was great. And then the other half of the movie, I'm like, I didn't care about that at all. With Stripes, I was the same way. I wish they had just made the first half of the movie longer and have it end with the graduation ceremony and not done all of the mission stuff.
Like Major Payne.
Yeah, because I didn't really care for that stuff at all. I mean, there was funny moments, of course, in it, but I was just like, you know what? I kind of wish the whole movie had just been kind of the earlier stuff.
I don't disagree with you on that. I still enjoy that part of it, but let's face it, those guys all would have been dead instantly. Like they're going against wasn't Russia? Was it Russia?
I think it was Russia.
It was kind of it was something Russian.
Or if it wasn't Russia, it was some country basically meant.
Yeah, they all get captured except for Bill Murray and Ramis, and they go in and try to save them. And like this is like the military. They're all shooting at them, and none of them can hit them and stuff like that. I'm just like, they would all be dead instantly. There's no way Bill Murray and Harold Ramis would have broken into this fortress and saved everybody and gotten out without a single fatality or anything like that. So you kind of have to take the disbelief out of it. But I agree. The basic training stuff all the way to graduation, which the heightened of the graduation performance dance, that's the peak of the film, and then it does. What's that?
That should have been the finale. Yeah,
exactly. And then it probably should have ended like cliffhanger, like, oh well, now you guys are going to war. What? And then just end it like that because you're like, oh, what's going to happen? We don't know. Hopefully they live. But then instead we get them going to, and then they survive, and then you got like the whole montage at the end with like they become like huge stars because of it, with like magazine covers and everything. It's like, that's not how war works. It's like y'all probably would have been arrested for breaking protocols and all this stuff. You would have been in jail. But it's the 80s, and you got to have those kind of endings. But I agree, it does lose itself in the third act, but the first two acts are great. They are great, and they're fun, especially the mud wrestling scene, where John Candy's going against like four women, and Bill Murray's the manager outside the ring, like, what are you doing there? Come on, you can't do that. That's cheating. I was like, I just love that, because that's just Bill Murray just full on improvising that whole thing, and it's fun. It's fun.
It's very much also that kind of the 80s kind of comedy with just tons of gratuitous nudity, and whether it be in that scene or with like the MP girls later on, which the thing is just nowadays this sounds wrong.
I never knew that girls like to be spatulated until I saw that movie. I didn't know that was not a thing. Anyway,
there's a whole collection of spatulas. But it's one of those things. It feels, I don't want this to sound weird saying this, I kind of miss that kind of thing in comedy, because not because I'm like, ooh, I want to see boobs, it's not that kind of thing. But it's like nowadays, it's like they're so afraid to offend everybody that unless it's intentional, like a teen sex comedy specific movie, they're like, oh no, we can't have that kind of comedy in our movies.
Even then, they don't do the teen sex comedy anymore because it's too offensive.
Rarely. Yeah.
Guys.
Anyway, that's a whole tangent we won't get into.
Yeah, we could have a whole episode talking like that, which would piss off everybody. But it's fine. But no, I agree. I miss like the American Pies, the Porkies, the stuff like that. It does not just, like I said, like Brian said, it's not because of the naked woman. You can have the guys there too. But just like that designated kind of story plot point, those were funny, raunchy comedies. Hell, we talked about one earlier.
Without worrying about political correctness, without worrying about it.
I mean, literally talked about one earlier this year with Euro Trip and Fired Up. Those are raunchy teen sex comedies. Clearly, the whole pathos of this is to get fucking laid, and be offensive, and it's funny. And if you can just have a sense of humor and not be overly critical of everything, you can have a fun time. And Stripes is the same way. And even in that third act where it's aimless, because it's not aimless, but it's just like it kind of jumps the shark in a sense. It's still enjoyable, but it definitely feels like a whole separate other film than what we watched for the first two acts. But yeah, if you're a fan of Bill Murray, Harold Ramis, John Candy, Judge Reinhold, I don't think Judge Reinhold gets a whole lot to do in the movie except kind of stand around.
He's just one of their troop.
Yeah, he's just one of the
lines here and there. But what's funnier is that there's actually people that have even less lines. And now apparently Bill Paxton's in there as a soldier.
I didn't recognize him in it.
Dennis Quaid is an extra at graduation ceremony. Timothy Busfield. I actually do remember Timothy Busfield as a soldier with a mortar. But there's a bunch of people in here. I'm like, oh, I had no idea they were in this movie.
But yeah, and then who's the drill sergeant? I actually really enjoyed him.
The drill sergeant. Warren Oates, Sergeant Hulka?
Sergeant Hulka. He and Bill Murray were great together in the movie. Like they were fun to watch. But yeah, Stripes. It's '80s comedy, early '80s comedy, with some of the greatest comedic actors out there, really before they became stars. Is Stripes on anything?
Speaking of stars, it's on Stars if you have that, but nowhere else for free right now.
Gotcha, but it's definitely worth to check out if you guys want to see that comedy. And this, like I said, before Ghostbusters, before Uncle Buck, Planes, Trains, Automobiles, all those things. But definitely check this out. It's definitely a funny movie. Just kind of bear in mind that the third act kind of falls down by the wayside. But next, we are going to go to our revisited film. This is a movie that is considered a horror classic that I had never seen from beginning to end. Yes, I've seen, I think for the most part, every important scene in this movie, but did I have it with the mindset of the story that was being told? No, I did not. And no, I did not see the remake either, which makes no sense because I love Mary Elizabeth Winstead. But we are talking about 1982's The Thing. The Thing came out June 25th, 1982, had a budget of $15 million and had a weekend opening of $3 million. It was number 8 its opening weekend, once again, behind, I think this came out the same week as Stripes, actually.
What's a year later?
Oh, no, because it's the same weekend opening. Because I got E.T., Blade Runner, Firefox, Rocky. Anyway, it's up on the screen. I'm not going to read all those names again. The Thing had a finished box office of $19.6 million. 19.6 million domestic and only 2,200 international. Wow. Never thought I'd have thousands or low thousands for an international rate. Actually, there's a movie that we're going to be talking about down the road here. It has $1 international.
Which I'm betting was some kind of placeholder number somebody put in.
Yeah, so it's like clearly they did not go international.
Things, I mean, back then, not a lot of movies played internationally, and if they did, they probably didn't track the box office much. And something like this, which is, John Carpenter is not going to be a big name anywhere else in the world at the time. I mean, he had done like Halloween and some things, but those weren't going to be big films. So I'm not surprised he didn't make a ton of money. Because international didn't really become a thing until
this is the epitome of a cult classic that has now become not a cult classic, but an actual classic where it just didn't work at the time. And I think it didn't work at the time because I think back in '82 they just weren't prepared for, I would say, the gore or the practical effects, which to this day still looks amazing. Just the thought process, the mind process at Carpenter, and I'm not saying that it was all Carpenter. I'm sure everyone working behind the scenes had a thought process with this, but just the practical effects of The Thing. It looks great to this day. We're talking 39 years ago, and it still looks great. Kurt Russell is, I think, relatively still kind of a young actor at this point. I think he carries the film really well. You also got Keith David, Wilford Brimley, Richard Mazer. What's that?
Richard Mazer.
Mazer, sorry. Wilford Brimley. Every time I see him, I just kind of chuckle because I think of the Ewok movie. For me, actually, no, Brian, why don't you go first? Because you've seen this many times. Where this was the first time watch for me.
This is the second time I've seen this movie.
Oh, okay.
So I hadn't seen it for years.
This is the epitome of a revisited then for Brian and I.
So I finally watched it for the first time. I don't know exactly when, but it wasn't a long time ago. It's in within the last 10 years or so. That's the first time I watched this movie, which for a 39-year-old movie that came out while I was around is kind of surprising. Again, like you, I probably had seen scenes of it here and there, but I didn't first watch the movie until then. So I rewatched it this time, remembering the main points of the movie, but I didn't remember a whole lot of individual scenes and my feelings about it. I'm in the minority that I'm not blown away by this movie. I think this movie is okay. There's definitely, I think the acting and kind of the paranoia and suspicion and tension and stuff they do within the group, I think that's done very well. I think that the effects, while they are creative and at some points done very well, I think other times they look pretty darn cheesy and puppety and stuff like that, which I understand is limitations of the time. But there's people like, oh wow, these hold up today, and you could put this on and it would look better than anything today. I'm like, no, they wouldn't. They would look cheesy and puppety.
So literally, you just buried me after I just said that, like not even 2 minutes ago.
If a movie came out, if this movie didn't exist, let's say, but this movie or some other movie came out today with the exact same shots, the exact same effects in them, people would not look at it and go, oh wow, that's good effects. They look at that and be like, wow, that looks like something out of the 80s, which at the time was good, but it does not hold up to today's standards. But anyway, I digress. That's one of those things I don't really criticize, except when people overpraise it a little bit for me. So, I mean, it's a movie that I think is good, but not great. If I haven't pissed you off yet, audience, I like The Thing, the 2011
remake.
It's actually a prequel.
Oh, is it a prequel? It's not the same.
Yeah, because actually, if you watch this movie, when they go to the where the Norwegians were, and you like see where that big ice block that it came out of, and you see the whole room where everything. All those sets are in that movie.
That's where are they the Norwegians in the new one? Oh, okay.
Yes. And I think it's very well done. And of course, Mary Elizabeth Winstead. The effects, yes, they of course, while there are some practical stuff, they do a lot of stuff digitally as well, which I know some people don't like that, and some people do. And even in that movie, I think there's some effects that are well done, and there's some that just look like bad CG. So it has the same faults. But personally, I actually enjoy that movie more. This one I don't dislike. I just don't praise it the way a lot of other people do.
I'm going to push back on the effects a little bit, because I think if it came out today with those effects, I don't think people would go, oh my God, this looks so bad. I think they would praise it for trying to go more practical with it than it would trying to CG everything. I mean, you look at like the Aliens movies now or the Predator movies now. Well, no, I'm not going to knock Predator, but Aliens. Everything's just CG and special effects and not practical very much anymore. Whereas this would be kind of an homage to 80s horror or even early 90s horror that I don't think it would be looked at negatively. I think
it came out with that thing where like, look, they were trying to do an homage to 80s horror. Yes, because that just exemplifies how this looks. The effects look very 80s. They do not. But I don't think that necessarily would be a retro thing.
I don't think that makes it look bad. I think that makes it look like that retro.
It's fine. It's fun. It's just again. I don't hate the effects. I think they're very creative. I like the look of them and stuff. I hear people overpraise this movie and its effects especially, and it just bugs me a little bit. But that's it.
Fuck The Thing and its high horse that it stays on.
Actually, you know what? I would almost put this more in the realm of things like Christopher Nolan movies, which are good movies.
You're about to piss off everyone today, aren't you?
They've stopped watching already. But no, which are good movies for the most part. But there are people that are just so Nolan worshipers that you're just like, it almost makes you dislike the movies more just because you're sick of hearing about them, that kind of thing.
You can say the same thing about Tarantino. You can say the same thing about Pixar, which we're going to be talking about.
I totally think people overrate Pixar, but that's.
I mean, you can say that about MCU. I mean, anything that's really big fandom, Star Wars, you can attack that. So I mean, it's one of those things where it's just like, if it's not your cup of tea, you have more, venom in the bite to attack it, and if you do like that, then you're like, oh, okay, it's fine, it's okay, kind of like how you defend the Fast and Furious movies. You can't, except for Fast 9, you hated that. But anyway, we're talking about The Thing. I'm kind of inclined to agree with you on certain aspects of that. It's one of those where you hear how amazing this film is and how it's one of the best horror films of all time and all this, and then you're watching it and you're like, it's good. I don't think it's this amazing film. I think, like I said, the practical effects are fantastic. I think the acting is okay. The whole, suspicion, not knowing who's who and all that kind of stuff. Do I think they could have done it a little bit better, or maybe gotten to certain aspects of the film quicker so that we could have gotten more story into it? I agree. I think so, because I think there's that part in the middle where they're just trying to flip the chairs too many times. And it's just like, we need a focal point right now. And right now we're still just kind of dancing around of who it is and who it isn't. And then we finally get to the blood test scene. And it's like, we could have done this 15 minutes
Yeah,
ago.
because up to that point, what happens is it gets real repetitive. So like, oh, I think this guy is, I think he might be one of the things, and so they chase around, and it turns out no, somebody else. Boom, turns out to be a thing.
And then,
Oh,
and then there's
there's some
situations
cool special effects, monster they made, and then they go on to 5 minutes later. Oh, I think this guy might be a thing now, and so nope, this guy jumped out. Oh, it's another cool effects monster. It's like
yeah. And then there's situations where once again, like these guys have already made an established motive of no one leaves anyone's sight. Everyone stays together, so we know what's going on. But then they break up.
Oh yeah.
And it's not even 2 minutes later, you guys literally just already went away from what you guys were trying to do, which is kind of frustrating in a story standpoint, because it's like if that's going to be a main story, you have to be a little more clever than I'm going to go check out my place. You stay here. No, you come with me, kind of thing. But
just split up, really?
Yeah, but it's like it's still a good film. I enjoy it. I don't think it. Yes, I haven't seen the prequel, remake, sequel, whatever the hell you want to call it. But I thought it was solid. I think Kurt Russell's decent in it, and I think I really enjoyed the practical effects of it all and how it looks. I just think the story could have been a little bit better. The ominous ending, I could take it or leave it, kind of thing. But I'm glad I finally watched it. I can't say that, a year from now, will I remember the film? Probably not. I mean, I'll remember the thing, but will I really remember plot points of the movie because it's that, remembered in my brain? No, probably not, because it didn't have that lasting effect on me, such as like other horror films have done, that are 10 years apart since I've last seen it, but I still remember frame for frame of what happened in the films. But I think it was a decent, revisit. I don't think it deserves all the praise, but I still think that it's a decent 80s, film overall. Anything else you want to add to the thing?
No, I think I pissed off enough people.
I was gonna say, like, you want to attack someone else? You want to attack John Carpenter fans while we're at it? Kurt Russell fans?
Well, no.
Okay.
I like Kurt Russell. You can't. I don't focus.
Yeah, so how can you not like Kurt Russell? He's Santa. Come on, guys. He is a great Santa, by the way. The Christmas Chronicles, the movie is not great, but the movies aren't great, but he is a perfect Santa. The Thing, is it on anything?
Again, if you have stars, apparently everybody needs to subscribe to that. You can watch it. Otherwise, it's not free anywhere. But for you, I will say the prequel is on Peacock, so you can watch that.
I may consider that. We're gonna be going to Brian's pick now. Like I said, Brian likes a lot of movies, but Brian very rarely will you see a movie that Brian gives a perfect 5-star review. Why are you acting like you're embarrassed? You're just blushing.
I'm just waiting for the other shooter drop. Okay, go ahead.
Clearly we've had movies on the show for me that I've had, near perfect scores or perfect scores, but I've never had a perfect one from Brian. So I remember this movie when it came out. I remember parts of the movie, but I don't remember the whole thing. So rewatching this, it's one of those things where okay, I need to give this my full attention because this is a perfect score from Brian, and I need to give it its justice. But we were talking about I feel like I'm going to say his name wrong. Steven Soderbergh. See, I knew I was going to say it wrong. Film Out of Sight. Out of Sight came out June 26, 1998. Had a budget of $48 million. Had a weekend opening of $12 million. It was number 4 its opening weekend behind Dr. Dolittle in its first week, Mulan in its second week, and The X-Files in its second week. It had a finished box office of $77.7 million, $37.56 million domestic, and $40.18 million international. Brian, perfect film. Go at it. I'm not going to talk anymore until you let me.
Can't Hardly Wait. Kick-Ass. Just scrolling through other ones we've talked about. 5 stars? Yeah, 5 stars.
Oh, I thought that was like a 4.5.
Top Gun, 5 stars. Okay, I'll stop now. We've talked about the ones that are 5 stars. So yes, Out of Sight. Steven Soderbergh is a guy who it was never like a favorite director of mine or anything. I mean, I'd seen the movies he'd done, before this, and he was kind of in that area where he's he started as an independent director and started doing some mainstream films, but it was kind of not really he didn't do blockbustery type mainstream or anything like that. This one came out, I saw it mainly for the cast. George Clooney, of course, had at this point broken into movies. He did, first did Peacemaker, and then he did I think From Dusk Till Dawn was right, a couple years before this. Yeah, he did a couple other things. So Out of Sight came out, and he was kind of the main draw of it. And Jennifer Lopez at this point was kind of breaking into acting. She'd done some movies before, but this is kind of a good dramatic role for her. But then mostly the supporting cast what got me. You got Ving Rhames, Don Cheadle, Steve Zahn, Albert Brooks is in there, Luis Guzman, who I always like in everything he's in. You got some cameos in there that I'm not going to mention, just in case you haven't seen it yet. But this is a movie it's a comedy. It's not really, a laugh out loud beginning and comedy. It's not that kind of thing.
A darker, dry comedy.
It's a dramedy, I guess. I mean, I'd say it is a comedy the whole way through, but it's not. It's just not your wacky zany comedy. It's a more mature kind of comedy, I guess. But this is a movie that just from frame one, I think just the way it's shot and the way the characters act, and especially with George Clooney, this whole movie, just the music and everything kind of oozes cool, in my opinion. It's just, there's something about it. It has a certain atmosphere to it. The way the players, it's smooth. The way the actors, the characters interact. The dialogue is tons of fun, especially when you get like Don Cheadle going bouncing off George Clooney and stuff like that. It's a ton of fun. And then you got Jennifer Lopez in there, and her and George Clooney have chemistry that's just off the charts, which I would never have called that. But you put those two characters together, and they just this is a case where you can really feel the attraction to it. They did such a good job of making those characters feel like they would be attracted to each other, and kind of how the relationship, I guess, kind of grows, and they both are kind of resisting it because it's the cop and the robber, essentially.
Yeah,
it's a forbidden thing, and how they juggle that. But this is a movie, I think the thing that I love most about it is the script. It's based on a novel from Elmore Leonard, who is also the guy who wrote books that things like Jackie Brown was based on, Get Shorty, some other stuff like that. But the book, the source material is pretty good. But then you have the script in it, which again, the dialogue, the interaction between the characters, so what makes this movie. Steve Zahn is an actor who I love in pretty much everything. He's a favorite of ours here.
Yes, he is. He is.
So I love him and everything, and he's just doing his usual Steve Zahn thing, but again, works perfectly in this. And I mean, it's one of those things where there's a plot to it. There's a heist going on, things like that. But the plot in this movie is really kind of incidental to just the characters and how they interact and their encounters and stuff like that. And with the cast they assembled here, it's phenomenal. And this is actually what kind of kicked off the relationship with Steven Soderbergh and George Clooney for a long time. We became producing partners and stuff and did a lot of movies together, which led to the Ocean's movies and things like that. So,
yeah.
You had seen this before, or you had not?
I feel like I maybe had watched it when I was younger, and because I remember parts of it. But then remember I was telling you, I was like, I got this mixed up with Money Train.
Which...
I don't know
nothing
why.
To like except for having Jennifer Lopez in it.
I don't know why, but it was like there's certain parts where it's like I remembered like Clooney and Lopez, but I didn't remember anything about Don Cheadle in this film. So it was one of those things where it's like I remembered parts of it, but not all of it. So it kind of felt like a first time watch for me, even though I technically had reviewed it and previously watched it before. But a lot of everything you just said, I agree with. It's like I said, it's smooth and it's cool. And I think that's one of those things where, and I kind of wish Clooney had kind of stuck with this for a little while longer before starting to try to be, go to the prestige actor level with like the Seriana and all that, because he has this, which makes sense for Oceans, this Sinatra kind of like he's so effing cool.
Yeah, it's kind of Sinatra. It's a look like Cary Grant in there.
Yeah, he just oozes charisma to the point where it's like he doesn't have to show it. It just comes out of him naturally. And like I said, the chemistry between him and Lopez, it's not like they're making out and all this stuff. It's all done through the looks and the dialogue. They have
the first scene together is a conversation in a trunk, and even then you can feel it.
They have more chemistry in two scenes: the trunk scene and the what?
The hotel scene?
Well, the bar. I would say.
Yeah, the hotel bar. Yeah.
They have more chemistry in those two scenes alone than certain films have for an entire film that's a love story. Like, it is almost like you want to see them fuck. Like it's like, was it like just I want to see it. Not because it's obviously too. Hold on. It's not because it's George Clooney and Jennifer Lopez, but it's like the chemistry at that point has gotten to such a high point that's like, okay, these two have to like have to do it. Like you got to get it over with now, because it's just it's a cat and mouse game between them, because like you said, the cop and robber kind of thing. But it's so like it's forbidden territory for at least Jennifer Lopez's character, but she can't deny it. And Clooney is just infatuated with her, knowing who she is, and he needs to not be a part of this, but he just can't because it's fucking J-Lo. It's like, come on. But Clooney is so good at this, which is why I think the Ocean's movies work so well. And it could be Soderbergh's writing, but I think a lot of that is Clooney and his just very chalant, chill, smooth kind of dialogue, and the way he just kind of not necessarily chews up a scene, but he owns his scenes. And we obviously he was huge from ER, but ER he was like a powder keg in that. And here he's just like this cool cat who just knows no matter what's going to happen, everything's going to be all right. And then when things don't go all right, you can see the panic in his eyes, but he still plays it cool as shit the whole way through. And I wish Clooney had done that more.
Yeah, too many actors, in my opinion, do that. I find a lot of actors who find like this niche that they're perfect for, but then they're like, "Oh no, I want to go do serious movies."
Yeah,
and I don't begrudge them wanting to,
No, it's like
range or
expand
go for
and
awards
grow.
like that. But I wish they'd go back. Like Clooney did that for a while. He would do like a fun movie, and then he'd do like a prestige movie. But then now he's to the point where he's not really done.
Now he just wants to be a director now. But it's like Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds oozes charisma. He'll go off and he'll try to do something different, but then he always comes back to what makes him great. Yeah. And then he'll like, okay, I did like 2 or 3 movies that everyone loves. Now I'm going to try something different. Did that work? No. Okay, let me go back to this, and then I'll try it again later.
This, I suppose, a better phrasing of what I meant when I was talking about Bill Murray, because Bill Murray was doing these great comedies in his career, and then he decided he wanted to go do some serious. He did like Lost in Translation, and I don't begrudge him that, but he never really came back. He kept doing, except for like a cameo and Zombieland, things like that. But he mostly kind of stayed. I'm just going to do these Wes Anderson things, and it's like, we want you to come back to old Bill Murray, and he never really did. And that's what I was talking about when I was saying, we kind of lost his style of comedy, is because he didn't come back. And so I wish George Clooney, like you, would keep doing the things, but who knows where he's going at this point.
Well, now he's all about selling his, like, is it coffee or tea? Like, as those commercials where it's like the espresso or whatever. It's like Clooney, you're rich, I get it, but it's like we need this Clooney back. Yeah. Him and J-Lo, they're great in the film. Steve Zahn is Steve Zahn. I wish we had more Steve Zahn in the movie, because even every time him and J-Lo are on screen together, it's gold. It's gold whenever they're on screen together. Don Cheadle, I don't think I've ever seen Don Cheadle play a character like this before, so it was someone new. It was a new experience for me seeing Don Cheadle act this way, and it was fun. It was fun watching him play this kind of character. And then knowing that this eventually led to him and Clooney being back together again in the Oceans made me appreciate it even more. But yeah, and I agree with you in one thing. It's not about the story. It's about the characters. It's about their interactions. It's about their dialogue with one another. Because it got to certain points where I was just like, I forgot what we were doing. And it's like, oh, wait, they're trying to do this one heist. I totally forgot, because I was all just
because this conversation you're just focused on this scene. Yeah, this conversation is so good.
I was focused on this relationship potential of Clooney and J-Lo, and then it's like, oh wait, we got this whole other thing going with Don Cheadle and all them, which I was like, I'm interested in. But it's just like, but you're just always in the moment. And I credit that to the acting, to the writing, to the direction of Sonnenberg. And it's just a super cool film. It's a super cool film. And granted, earlier I gave a horrible review to his latest film, which was No Sudden Move, which once again, he's trying to do the same thing in that one, but he doesn't have the cast to do that kind of film. Because No Sudden Move is boring. And that's got Cheadle in it also. But it's like, it's just kind of, because they don't have a Clooney in that movie. They don't have a Steve Zahn. They've got Benicio, which Benicio's a special kind of actor. You have David Harbour, who to me was the best part of the movie. But they don't have the cast that they had in this. And it made me want, especially the way it ends. And like I said, Ving Rhames' character, I really enjoyed Ving Rhames in this film as well. I wish that we'd seen more from these. I wish this is one of those rare movies where it's like, it didn't need a sequel because we didn't get one, but I would have liked to have seen a sequel with these characters. I wanted to see these characters again. I wanted to see what happened with these characters.
I kind of would love to. It's like, it's the kind of thing where it's, you love these characters. You would like to see like another chapter. I would like to see just a whole other story, not necessarily even sequel, just kind of like, I guess it would be a sequel, but not like a direct sequel. Because I mean, there's a scene at the very end, which kind of teases what's going to happen next. But you don't need to see that story. I just want to see like 10 years later where these characters are at. That'd be kind of like Trainspotting did. I would like to see that kind of thing with Out of Sight, where it's just like, hey, let's revisit these characters. Where
like 10 years down the road, kind of thing.
Because it'd be really fun to see what happened there.
Because the way the movie ended, I think, what was it? I think I asked you. I was like, is Samuel L. Jackson playing this character?
Oh, there's the cameo. Okay.
Well, he's. Yeah, it was just like
it's 23 years.
He pops in at the end, and I was like, "Is he playing this character from this movie?" You're like, "No." I'm like, "Oh, I thought it was a connection to this film." And it's like,
well, that's the thing is, I would almost love to see if they did like an Elmore Leonard verse, because I'll go ahead and talk about the other one too, because I don't care. This, especially in this trivia community that we're in, this question gets asked a lot. Michael Keaton shows up as the same character in this movie.
That's right. I was asking if he was connected to the same
that he plays in Jackie Brown. The same character
he
plays in Jackie Brown. Which, because both are written by Elmore Leonard, it's like I almost kind of wish they'd kind of create this Leonard verse, because I've read some of his other books, and actually I think part of the success of this movie was based on it is a good story to start with, and a lot of the dialogue actually comes from the book. But yeah, so I can see why you'd think that, because like, well, if Michael Keaton's the same character and Samuel L. Jackson's in both, is he the same character? Like, no.
Yeah, I still have Jackie Brown's. I think the only Tarantino film I have not seen, but if I knew that it was the same verse, maybe I probably would watch it.
It's not really. They reuse the same character as kind of a nod to the fact that they're written by the same thing. But and that, because I think in the book the same character does show up in both, but the actual movies aren't technically actually in the same universe. So.
Yeah, gotcha. All right. Anything else you want to add for Out of Sight?
No. Everyone should watch it and give it high ratings. And
watch the sexiest two people in a trunk scene that you probably have seen ever in a film. That actually is great. That whole scene is great. It's such a it's great. Albert Brooks is also really good in this. I didn't recognize it was Albert Brooks until like 3/4 of the way through the film, because he's wearing like his hair. It was throwing me. The whole movie I was like, oh crap, that's Albert Brooks. I didn't recognize him until like near the end of the film. But yeah, there's so many other great actors and actresses in this film. It's definitely worth checking out. I understand where Brian's love for this film comes in. Out of Sight on anything?
I'm starting to wonder if Just Watch is glitching. It says it's on Stars. You know what? Get a free trial and just watch all the movies that we ever talk about.
Well, this next movie is not on Stars. It's on Disney.
It is not.
We're already going to say that right off the bat. Our feature film is a film that I didn't know Brian enjoyed as much as I did. I thought I was living on a mountain by myself, because everyone back in the day seemed to really, really love this movie, and now it seems like everyone's turned their back on this film for some weird effing reason. But this is, like, when it comes to Pixar films, to me, in terms of rankings, Toy Stories are god tier. They started the whole thing. They're the spine of Pixar, so like they get their own kind of rankings.
Three of them.
You're right.
Anyway.
Toy Story 2 is not that great. Toy Story 4
is not god tier. Anyway,
I like 4. Shut up. It is emotional. Don't give me that. When she gets picked up as a toy and the girl throws her back in the basket, it is heartbreaking, and I don't care who knows
Moving
it.
on.
Anyway, this film is easily in my top 3. It spoke to me the first time I watched it, and the many rewatches of it. I love this film, and it's easily one of my favorite Pixar films, and we are talking about WALL-E. WALL-E came out June 26, 2008, had a budget of $150 million, had a weekend opening of $63.08 million. It was number 1 its opening weekend, its only week at number 1, and had a finished box office of $521.3 million, $223.8 million domestic, and $297.5 million international. yes, I mean, bare bones, it's a story about a dumpster bot. But it is a beautiful story about a dumpster bot. I love the director choices that they made in this film by making the first half of this film relatively a silent film. Seeing the inner life and the daily life of Wally, and how he's just a bot that just does his job, and then just finds the little things that basically, I mean, he's a robot. He doesn't understand. Like when he picks up like an engagement ring and he throws the ring away, but he keeps the box because the box, is flippy. He finds little things in his life to keep the robot going. He keeps mementos. He goes home and he watches TV until he falls asleep at night. He's us. He he works a menial job. He's got, his only friend is a cockroach, and he just kind of does his job day in, day out until he meets his love of his life in Eve. And it's a beautiful story. I love this film. It's gorgeous. It's to me still to this day one of the most beautiful Pixar films in terms of visuals. The out of space scene where he's flying around with the fire extinguisher, which I get that fire extinguisher would have went out way sooner than that. But that scene where they're dancing around is breathtaking to me. It's one of my favorite Pixar moments in all Pixar films. Yes, you can attack the whole by large fat people storyline, but it speaks a lot to present day stuff. It really does. But WALL-E as a whole is a gorgeous film. It's a beautiful film, and it's one of my favorites. Brian?
You pretty much stole everything I was going to say about this movie. Because WALL-E.
You did that to me without a sight, so I don't care.
Yeah, I mean, because Pixar is, I don't. The Pixar makes movies that I enjoy. Pixar makes movies that I, again, don't love as much as other people, and that's fine, more power to them. But WALL-E is easily one of my top two favorites, if not my favorite one from Pixar. And it's the one I didn't expect to be. It came out, and I'm like, okay, it's a robot, and I watched the trailer for it. I'm like, okay, whatever. And I went and saw it, and I loved it. And part of that is like he already said, it's the filmmaking choices. The whole first, what is it, half hour, first half of the film or whatever, which is basically a silent movie. I love that they did that. It's done like a silent movie. I mean, he's making noises and stuff, but it's very Chaplin-esque. It's not all physical comedy. A lot of it's just reaction and how he's working with his environment.
There's so much with just this.
Oh yeah, because the design of WALL-E is clearly at least somewhat inspired by E.T., but it has its own personality too. And just with just the eyes, they're able to do so much with the eyes that just expresses emotion. And then it's just one thing I will never criticize Pixar for is their animation, their ability to convey emotion and stuff like that, because they do a great job with it. And WALL-E is a perfect example of that. The whole first half, which is very like Chaplin or Buster Keaton kind of the silent film, I think that it works perfectly. I think that it's better than anything. If they had tried to have a talking robot and it would have only made the film weaker. Because I like the way they did it. I mean, he does talk, but I mean, for the first
he's got like 3 words.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Then later on, the other scene I was going to talk about is the basically a ballet in space. It's this dance scene where there's this almost a romantic scene where the two of them are kind of having this space ballet, and they're dancing around and floating around in the air, and that's just, again, so well done that with no dialogue, with just these two characters and flying around in space, you feel more for these two characters. You feel the chemistry between these two animated robots than you do in human people in a live action movie in most movies. So it's just one of the things that made it so well. And as far as the storyline with the people have gotten fat on the spaceships, I didn't mind that at all. I mean, a lot of people criticize that as being a little bit too too cartoony and overt, but I understood what it was trying to say. People getting lazier and lazier in their reliance on technology. It kind of juxtaposed with the two main characters of the movie are technology essentially, and so I get where they're going with that, and I didn't mind the storyline at all. Is that storyline as strong as the parts of the movie that are just about the robots? No, but it was still fine, and this is a near perfect movie for me.
Yeah, one of my favorite moments as well, going back to that one particular scene, is the moment where they quote unquote kiss and it causes a little spark, and Wally's just like, it just like freezes. It's such a funny, beautiful moment. And then a special shout out to my other favorite character in this film. I think they call him Bernie, which is the little cleaner guy. Like, he gets mad every time. The whole, like, there's the one scene, like I said, beautiful little moments, quiet moments, is when he keeps trying to clean Wally, and Wally's like, and then he puts his foot out, he cleans it, and then he like puts him, like, he touches Bernie, Bernie's like, ah!
There's on the DVD and Blu-ray, and it's probably on Disney Plus.
Isn't there like a short?
Yeah, there's a short featuring Bernie, and he's great. Yeah,
I love that character. And then, like I said, they introduce all these other robots that have like little small moments, kind of like you would call like the Toy Story crew. They all have their little moments, and then of course you've got what do you call like the HAL 9000 character in this film? I forgot what he's called.
It's Sigourney Weaver's the voice of. It's just the ship's computer. It's not. It doesn't have a name.
Just computer.
It's just the ship's computer. Yeah.
Oh no, it's Otto. It's Otto.
Oh, we're talking about two different things.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about Otto.
I was talking about Sigourney Weaver as the voice of the computer, the ship's computer.
No, I was talking about Otto, who's like the HAL 9000, who's like trying to stop them from going back. Yeah, like even that character, I think, is where it was one of those things where it's like, he's labeled as the bad guy in the film, but he's just following his orders. Like, he's not even bad in the movie. He's just doing literally what Fred Willard's character told him to do, which is following his directive. Little side story. Brian already knows this story. I once accidentally terrified a young child with Wally. My heart was in the right place, but this is because I tend to do pretty good voices, and Wally is one of the voices I'm pretty good at doing. And this is when I was working at Best Buy, and we had a big Wally standee because Wally was just coming out on Blu-ray, and we had a big like life-size Wally, and this little kid was standing in front of it because like the eyes moved and everything, and he's standing in front of it, and he's like, "Hi, Wally. Hi, Wally," and he's trying to get the robot to talk. It's not an animatronic bot, like it's not gonna talk, and I felt bad because like the kid was just getting sadder every time he kept saying "Hi, Wally." So I'm like, I'm gonna make this kid's day. So I walk behind it, and I get behind it, and the kid's like, "Hi, Wally," and I do the Wally voice to try to make him feel better. Kid screams bloody fucking murder and runs across the store, and everyone just stops and looks at me, and I was like,
Sean, stop terrorizing the customer.
Exactly. Everyone's like, "Sean, you just ruined Wally for that kid." And I was like, all I was trying to do was make his day because he wanted Wally to talk, and I was gonna make Wally talk to him, and instead, I probably gave that kid nightmares. And I'm sorry, kid. I don't know if you're still scared of Wally to this day, but I was trying my best to make you happy. But it's a character that this is one of those I'm glad they didn't do a sequel to, because there's no way that it would have had the magic that I think that it instilled in the first film, which we kind of got the sequel in the credits, because in the credits we've seen what happens after the movie ends. You've seen them grow the world and all this kind of stuff. I think Eve is a great character as well, someone who's Prime Directive, and then you're seeing her kind of break against her code and stuff. Like there's so much beauty in this film, and I think a lot of people just look at this movie and they think, "Ugh, the silent robot movie or the movie about fat people." And it's just like, if that's all your guys are seeing when you look at Wally, then you're not watching Wally.
Again, this is a movie that's not about the story. It's not about the plot at all. It's about this relationship and these two characters. Yeah.
Exactly. Pixar's going to do its thing. It's going to have its big hidden meanings, which is not really that hidden. It's
pretty overt in that movie.
Yeah, it's overt. This is the one movie where it's like, okay, well, look, we're in a quiet film, so we're gonna go for it. But
you get it, Pixar, okay.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where it's like, while this storyline's going on, you got to think of it this way: Wally is a pretty simplistic character. He's just going through his life, and even then, you just by interacting with him at one point, the one guy and girl, I'm blanking on their names, their whole world changed because they interacted with him. And they stopped looking at their screens, and they learned to start walking around again, and all this kind of stuff. And they're like the two human characters outside of the captain that we actually started to follow, because Wally, the character, has that much of an importance. Just treating somebody differently, treating somebody like you acknowledge them, yet you see them, which is what Wall-E did. And, it's just Wall-E being Wall-E, but Wall-E left a mark on those two characters, just like Wall-E left a mark on me, obviously left a mark on Brian, in terms of a beautifully done Pixar film that I think really has kind of been not overshadowed, but kind of underappreciated and disrespected by a lot of people over the years, and really needs to be reestablished as one of the better Pixar films out there. Anything else for Wall-E?
Nope. You already stole everything I had to say. So.
You did it all for out of sight, except for me saying that Clooney and J-Lo need to fuck. But Wall-E...
No, I believe your words were, I want to watch them fuck.
No, I meant that they need to, not that I want to. I mean, I wouldn't say no, but shut up, Brian. Anyway, Wall-E is on Disney Plus, just like every other Pixar film. If you guys have not watched Wall-E in a long time, or if you guys maybe didn't think Wall-E was that great the first time around, I dare you to rewatch it with kind of a bigger eye lens of what it is and the performance of the Wall-E and Eve characters, and kind of look at the inner beauty of this film and tell me that you still don't think it's that great. Or be like Brian and I and rewatch it and go, man, this movie's so fucking good. But anyway, that is our show. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Weekend Crusaders. If you did, go ahead and hit that like, share, and subscribe button to the channel so you guys stay up to date with all the latest videos pop up on the Weekend Crusaders. And of course, don't forget to follow us on all the social media outlets you see below. Coming up next, I'm not sure what movies are coming out this week, but if there are any good ones, I'll have reviews for them. But we will be back next week with 5 new movies for us to talk about. One of them is probably where we talked about Brian having a near-perfect film and Wall-E with a near-perfect film. We have a film that is probably one of my favorite sports films of all time that I think is almost a near-perfect film. We have an 80s film that Brian and I have really near and dear to our hearts, especially the opening scene for many, many reasons, because we were both in love with the lead actress of this film. We have a comedy that I've never seen, but I've heard of quite a bit, that Brian is really adamant about me seeing. We have a revisited 80s film that I remember watching a lot as a kid. It was zany back then. We'll see if it still ages well here in the 2020s. And then we've got a stinker that Brian and I are already dreading.
Neither of us have seen it. I have a good feeling about this one. I think you're going to like this one.
We've never seen this film. All we've ever seen is the trailer. And the trailer was enough for Brian and I both to go, no, I'm good. And now we're going to watch it. And so we'll see.
I predict we'll love it.
Who are you kidding? Anyway, those are our 5 movies. Figure out what those are. Until next time, I'm Sean Wasserkrug. That's Brian Michaels. We're the Weekend Crusaders. And until next time, in case we don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Movie Crusaders. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that lost episode. Like I said, we've changed so much. We've grown as people since that episode aired. Just like our other episodes, we'll be back next week with 5 more movies. I would love to tell you what those movies are, but we don't know where we are in time and space right now to basically give you those answers. But like always, Brian Michaels and I will be back next week with 5 more episodes or 5 more movies for the Weekend Crusaders. So until next time, in case you don't see it, I'm Sean Wasserkrug. That's Brian Michaels. We are the Weekend Crusaders. And in case we don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Movie Crusaders.
You're still here? It's over. Go home.